Money Can't Buy Love. Part 4. For several days Victor was in a lost state. Alexandra's cell phone was unavailable, and the girl did not appear on social networks either. Former colleagues also did not know where to look for her. It only remained to raise the whole Moscow to the ears, but Victor's tough schedule did not allow him to do so. Several weeks passed. The old emotions for the girl subsided. Victor reassured himself that he liked the picture, but what it really was, he did not know. He continued to lead a secular life. He attended various events where the Moscow elite gathers, dined exclusively in restaurants. And somewhere in the subconscious, in every institution, he hoped to see Alexandra. Light like a wedge did not converge on her. Come down already. You somehow took my words literally. Do you want a simpleton? Here, exactly the same menu will bring you now. Sergei reassured his friend. What makes you think that she still worries me? And in general, do not meddle in your own business. Victor denied. Yes, there is no face on you after that evening. By God, how preoccupied. It's time for you to rest. Go somewhere, I don't know, to a store, to a swimming pool, for example, to a cinema. In the end, there just a new melodrama came out, according to your soul. Sergei said jokingly. It would be an excellent psychologist from you. Maybe you can go to the stock exchange and change your profession at the end of the day. Victor answered irritably. Hey you, I'm trying for you dear, I want to help. Sergei continued to support his friend in his manner. As much as Sergei annoyed Victor at the same moments, he still listened to his friend and freed himself from all matters on Friday. The choice fell to go to the cinema, though not to melodrama, but to a film about superheroes. Alla did not stop calling him, so Victor decided to give her another chance, or he just wanted to spend the night with someone. Therefore, so that it would not be so lonely, he invited her to the cinema with him. Alla looked great, still, she put herself in order all day. Dear, let's get some popcorn, she whispered softly in his ear. Okay. Which one to you? He mumbled indifferently in response. While he was making an order, Alla gently stroked his back so that everyone around could see that this man was busy. Oh Lord, and she's here from where? Alla hissed. Irritation was heard in her voice. Victor did not immediately pay attention to Alla's indignation, because this person was always unhappy with something. But when the seller handed him the ordered popcorn and cola and he turned around, Alla's caramel popcorn was on the floor because Alexandra was standing next to him. She was with some guy, apparently standing in line. He was speechless. He did not understand how this could be. What a chance meeting. The girl also immediately recognized him. It was clear from her how embarrassed she was, so she immediately turned away, as if she had not noticed him. There was still time before the show. Everyone was crowding around the hall. Alla, as always, buried herself in the phone, and Victor could not take his eyes off Alexandra. He noticed that the guy who was with her didn't really care for her. Apparently the first date was, and it was clear from the girl, that she was not particularly happy. When everyone was launched into the hall, Victor watched where the girl would sit. He was lucky. They were separated by one row, and she was sitting almost opposite. He watched half of the film in the back of her head. The film did not bother him at all. And suddenly she carefully got up and left the hall. Victor realized that this was his chance. I went to the toilet. He whispered in Alla's ear. Don't bother me. She could not tear herself away from the film, because a handsome actor was filmed there. The man followed the girl. He already wanted to go to the toilets, because he thought that she went there. But he noticed her already at the exit from the cinema. He had to run after her. Having run out into the street, she was already getting into a taxi. Alexandra, he shouted. She managed to get into the car, but turned sharply when she heard her name. Victor ran to the car. Out of breath, he walked around the car, opened the next door and sat inside. "What do you allow yourself? This is my taxi," she hissed. "You owe me," he said confidently and breathlessly. "I'm sorry, what do I owe you?" "Date." The girl did not have time to answer Victor, she was interrupted by the man behind the wheel. "Are we going or not?" the taxi driver asked irritably. "Don't you see? I don't know this man, drop him off," she demanded. "Friend, I'll pay you 10 times more if you hit the gas now." After the words of Victor, the car abruptly moved off. "Is this kidnapping? I'll call the police now," Alexandra said frightenedly. "Alexandra, Sasha, I'm sorry. God, I look like a psychopath, right?" Victor muttered disappointedly. "Actually, yes. Sasha, one evening. Let's just spend one evening." At this moment the girl relaxed a little. She saw that he did not want to harm her. "One evening and you will leave me alone?" "Yes." "Leadno," she surrendered. "Excuse me, could you stay near this park?" Victor turned to the taxi driver. "Who will pay?" grumbled the taxi driver. "How much do I owe you?" 10,000, as you promised, 10 times more. Actually, our trip cost 600. The girl burst in. "Well, that's right, 6,000 plus 4 on top for waiting. Everything on hold." Victor threw 2 orange bills on the next seat. When they left the car, both felt embarrassed, but Victor tried to take control of the situation. The time was already late, it got dark on the street, but the beauty of the park was that life there had just woken up. Inside the park there were many lights, attractions, eateries and hot dogs sold. There were a lot of people there, mostly a couple, the perfect place for a date. At first, he did not know where to start the dialogue, but then everything started spinning by itself. He found out that Sasha's phone number, which he bought from the administrator, was a worker, and upon dismissal, she handed over this phone to the employer. And she threw him when he was waiting for her in the restaurant all day because she gathered in a hurry because of a quarrel with the boss and left the restaurant through the service door, but having calmed down a little after the scandal, she remembered about Victor, but she could not return to the restaurant. She also talked a little about herself. As it turned out, she is 25 years old, she is getting a second higher education, so she had to say goodbye to work in a restaurant because she found a place in her specialty. She is studying to be a journalist, and her first degree was in international relations. She moved from a Siberian city. At first, Victor was a little embarrassed by the age difference, but after talking with the girl, he did not notice this difference. She was very educated, her speech was competently delivered. As in the video on the social network, Sasha turned out to be very kind and cheerful. Victor constantly laughed at her jokes. About the guy who was with her in the cinema, she could not say anything about him at all, since they really had a first date, they met on a dating site. Victor did not talk a lot about Ella, replied briefly that she was an old friend and nothing more. While they were walking, both did not notice how the hour passed, then the second, the third. The guy remembered that his car was parked at the cinema. They decided to walk there, and then he drove Sasha home. She lived on the outskirts of Moscow in a hostel. "Sasha, will you give your number?" "What for?" "We agreed, one evening." "Are you serious now?" "It is not more serious." Victor's temple twitched noticeably. "So, then, my business card, When you stop being mischievous, call me." He handed her a business card. Sasha smiled slyly, looked into his eyes for a couple of seconds, and then began to get out of the car, but then abruptly turned around and snatched the business card out of her hands. The smile on her face widened, and she slammed the car door. Victor watched the girl go. He sat in the car at the hostel for a few more minutes, a smile never left his face. Butterflies were flying in the stomach, at least that's the definition of love. But then his cell phone distracted him. On the screen, he saw 100 messages and several dozen missed calls from Ella. He forgot his phone in the car, so he completely forgot about it. He wrote her a message, "Sorry, the movie was not interesting," and went home. All night he waited for at least something from Sasha, but as for evil, the phone was silent. Ella had to be blocked because she was the one who broke Victor's phone. But not the next day, not 2 days later, and even 3 days later, there was not a word or a breath from Sasha. Continued follows. Signed, so you don't lose the sequel.